you like NASCAR? Do you like A Tribe Called Quest? Well, you gonna love the Urban Conservative.
Do you like manwich and nachos? Well, then you love the Urban Conservative.
Do you like guns? Do you like butter? Well, you're gonna love the Urban Conservative.
Yo, what's good, son? You like pit bulls, say? You like solving Sudoku puzzles? Then you gonna love the Urban Conservative.
Hey, buddy, if your car making a sound like this, you might want to get you some power steering fluid and check out the Urban Conservative podcast.
Are you repulsed by the idea of drag queen story time at your local library, but enjoy Carol Baskin TikTok memes? Then you would enjoy the Urban Conservative. Do you want to slap your boss and then go home and make yourself some golden brown pancakes covered in butter and freshly made warm boysenberry syrup? Then you'll love the Urban Conservative.
If you're a little over Cardi B and you're repulsed by the thought of Hogmaw, check out the Urban Conservative. Are you ready?
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Urban Conservative. Of course, if you're tapped in with us on YouTube, thanks for tapping in. Hit that subscribe. We appreciate it. As always, thanks for tuning in. Our mission here at the Urban Conservative is to continue to spread conservative values and policy ideas into minority communities, into our urban centers, and have fun doing it. And remember, the urban and urban conservative means to understand reality beyond all narratives. That means to get down to the truth, get down to the real of it. I want to give a big shout out to everybody that shouted us out yesterday for our 45th birthday. Big shout out to my twin brother, Dor Ali's on the road. Also, ladies and gentlemen, take a moment and I got to do the plug thing. So I got to share this with you guys. Make sure to head over to Ali for Congress. All right. My brother's running for Congress in North Carolina, District 12. We need strong conservatives in Congress that have life experience, that have the wherewithal and the knowledge and the drive to do the right thing in Congress. Head over to the website, learn more about the campaign. We're running a clean campaign. We're not out here bashing people. My brother's running a very, very good campaign. So head over there, make sure you learn more about that. And of course, our website, tuconservative.com, is the website where you can support what we do here. If you're so inclined, you want to get a membership, you can do that. We know Biden inflation got everything up, but our membership is still $10 for the year. Help us keep doing what we got to do here. No commercials, no magnetic wallets, no interruptions, none of that stuff. We just here to do it. So interesting show today. I know y'all not used to seeing us at this time of day, but as you all know, we're very, very big MMA fans. We're combat sport fans. Let me not say MMA fans. I don't want to pigeonhole us. So, over the years, I've had a love-hate relationship with the MMA media coverage, right? Some of us may know some of the bigger names, if you will. I've never understood that, the award thing. I never liked it, but there are some people that I resonate with, and because they talk about MMA and the things that go on, and they also address some of the political issues. A lot of you guys have seen people like Trump at some of the UFC fights, and we're going to talk about that. But the gentleman we're going to talk to today, I've been watching his content. Very interesting take on things. Host of a very, very awesome, dope YouTube channel. Welcome to the Urban Conservative Podcast for the first time. Jesse on Fire is in the building.
How are you, sir?
I'm well,
Thanks
sir.
for being on.
Oh, my pleasure, man. How was your Christmas?
Excellent. It was relaxed, man. We just did our thing here. What about you?
It was good. It was good. I'm not a big fanfare person. We usually do like the Christmas Eve thing with family, and then here it's breakfast, tear open stuff, play with stuff, and the regular one too. Uh,
Yeah.
this is my first Christmas back as a meat eater, so
How many
this was
years did
good.
you take off?
Oh, like 9.5.
Man, that must have been
Yeah,
awesome then.
yeah, it was good. I made my birthday was yesterday again. I said it earlier. So she came in with 2 New York strips for me, and it was the cast iron. It was just I'd rather do that than go out. Right? It was like, where do you want to go to eat? I was like, no, I'd rather do it here. No
Yeah.
complaints, and nice and smooth. But yeah, man, that's what we did.
What made you come back? That's a long break from anything, 9.5 years.
Okay, so to be honest, it was a physical need, right? Like I was experimenting with all of the proteins and eating as much as I could, and I went got some blood work done, and somebody who can read, right? I'm looking and I'm like, not absorbing as much protein as I would like. I mean, I understand the plant-based thing, and I started to question how much of this was some pseudo spiritual thing that I was
Mhm.
subscribing to, and then how much of it, the argument of are humans meat eaters versus not. And I said, well, you know what? Let me see how I feel. Let me start back and let me see what I'm doing versus with the animal protein. And really, I as I was working out, as I'm doing, hitting the bag, as I'm doing things, felt a lot better. I felt a little more, I don't want to say aggressive, but I could feel different, right? And
Mhm.
that was just really it. I just a need to feel like I was getting a more hearty protein absorption in my diet. Was really it. And like I said, I thought there was an argument I made about the DNA of an animal, blah 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 blah, and then I was just like, you know what, the chicken smells great too. Burgers, like I missed burgers. I can't even lie to you. A good burger, that was, you
It
know.
just makes sense. It's like you're trying to build, dense muscle. You eat dense muscle from another animal. It's like, people can jump into the weeds on the proteins, but that makes sense to me. You know what I mean?
And listen, and you know what? I quit smoking cigarettes years ago. It's been about 20 years now, something like that. We haven't smoked cigarettes, and I haven't done that. But I could, the smell of a cigarette, that still smells
Oh,
disgusting.
repulsive.
But a steak on a cast iron skillet with
Yeah.
butter and rosemary and bro, that is just hard to let go of. I mean, just I'm like, okay, let me weigh this out, right? Do I want to have lived my life and not recall? Like, even if I get dementia, I'm gonna the smell of a steak might snap me out of it, right? Like,
Oh, I
like
would imagine.
that's
Yeah.
yeah, might. So I gotta live it up. I gotta live it up. But let's get into you, Jesse, for our audience, right? For those who don't know you, right? I mean, obviously I know who you are, but give us the backdrop. How did you get into MMA? Covering MMA and a little bit of your journey into combat sports, if you will, in MMA.
Sure. Yeah. So basically, I've been an avid consumer of UFC since I don't think I've missed a pay-per-view since Shamrock fought Tito the first time. So whenever that was, 2001. And I did a fair amount of kickboxing. I took up jiu-jitsu now in the last, I don't know, 3-4 years also. But like when I was younger, I did a lot of kickboxing. And during the pandemic, it was like so my wife and I had been on 2 reality shows, like network reality shows. So we knew we were good on camera. And so it was like, all right, so the pandemic happens and everybody gets locked in their house. I'm like, what could I do with this extra time? And so I started posting on TikTok and it just blew up. And then I asked the obvious question, which was, well, do we swear on here or no?
Go for it.
Yeah. How the fuck does anybody make money doing this? And it's like,
Yeah.
well, they don't. And I'm like, what's the point then? It's like, oh, they make money, they make the money on YouTube. And I was like, oh. So then I started focusing heavily on YouTube. And yeah, so I think I posted my first YouTube video where I was like, I had posted random stuff. Like people were like, oh, you've been doing this for like 17 years. I'm like, no, I had a YouTube channel previously that I had posted a handful of things on that were like just under my regular name. and I had like 200 subscribers. So I just converted that to Jesse on Fire. But I started doing Jesse on Fire in April of 2020. And yeah, so after, I don't know, maybe like almost like exactly a year is when it really started to like catch traction, and it's been growing.
Mhm.
It grows around the same rate ever since. And now I got a really,
Yeah.
really big channel, and it's I'm incredibly grateful. A lot of
Yeah.
work though. Yeah.
It is awesome to see. And I'll be honest with you, there's like I said, there's a lot of talking heads in the space, if you know what I mean. And
Mhm.
I can kind of tell the difference from being somebody who actually loves the sport of people who are doing the channels just to have a channel and it be something that generates revenue versus someone who cares about the content, right? So how have you seen that development of MMA journalism? Not just from since you started YouTube, but like, since you've really started paying attention to UFC, right? Like, how has that journalism development been like from your perspective?
So when it comes, okay, so I always think about anything like this. If you're comparing two things that look like they're the same, I like to peel back the onion a little bit to see how similar they actually are. So it's like, all right, you have 5 people who have MMA YouTube channels, and they may cover some of the same stories. Some of them might have their own flair, but so to just to just like an outside observer, it seems like it's the same thing. But like for me, I'd be like, all right, so what's the purpose of this channel? Like what and where are they trying to go? If like you got one channel that is trying to be, they want to spin it up and then get a job at ESPN, it's like, okay, that's notable. Like that's
Mhm.
their end game is commentator for ESPN in their best case scenario. You got another one where maybe they were already an ESPN commentator, and so they just found out how much money they can make if they have a successful YouTube channel. And so they're like, oh shit, all I have to do is work another, do another half an hour of content a day and I'll make an extra whatever. And then other people are like, I just love MMA and, I want to, I mean, so it's just all different. Like for me,
Yeah.
I never intended on staying in mixed martial arts exclusively ever. Like that was never my intent, still not my intent. It was like I love mixed martial arts, so I'll always cover it. But I love being a creator and talking about all kinds of stuff. And so it's like what separates my channel from everybody else's, I think, is that I basically use stories that are happening in mixed martial arts to talk about all kinds of other shit. It's like
Right.
I use them as an excuse to talk about, culture, talk about relationships, talk about, mental health, talk about drug addiction, talk about all kinds of other stuff that like, most of the stuff that people would consider to be my competition are breaking down fights. That's what they
Right.
do, which is fine.
Right.
And they're fucking
Cool.
better at that stuff than me. But
Right.
my channel's different because it's always been like, if I'm going to grow and get to a place where I have a staging point to become like a globally recognized creator, I think starting in a niche makes the most sense, and you grow to where you're prominent there and then you expand. So that's what I've been doing. And then like, I also think that in the last, since I started doing it, like there never used to be any prominent YouTube creators that were not previously fighters or commentators. Like there was no one who just kind
Good
of
point.
started from, I'm a fan of the sport and then blew up, and
Mhm.
like, so now you've got, maybe a few, but like Guru, me, and a couple other people that are starting to catch some traction. We were like the first ones that just like, without people having seen our Hall of Fame UFC careers, built the channels. And
Sure.
our channels are built on talent. It's like it's built on talent and consistency. You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
Like, are
Right.
you
Right.
familiar with Patrick Gavia's channel?
No.
Does the documentaries. He does
No.
fucking brilliant MMA documentaries. He went to UFC Austin with me recently, but so he told me, not on just in a personal conversation, that he thinks that the YouTube algorithm is so brilliant because what it actually ends up being is it's a what's the right way to put this? I can't remember. He put it very eloquently, but it was like the algorithm is going to sift through all the nonsense and then it's going to bring the best content to the top. It's like if you're like if you have real talent, the algorithm's going to find you and you'll end up being promoted because it's all based on statistics. It's like you don't need to guess. If people consistently click on your content and they watch it much longer than everyone else's, then
you'll know. Yeah, it takes the guesswork out. As much as people hate on the algorithm because you hear a lot of the unsuccessful people. No, it's the algorithm. No, you're making shit content, and it's that could be an option. It's not always the algorithm, right? That's a thing. So, but that's interesting. You say that, and mentioning Guru too. He catches a lot of flack. I like his channel, but he can't. Yeah, listen. I think that the MMA space, and you know what I really want to ask you about is this Ariel Helwani thing, right? So let's just say as a casual, not as somebody who understands that that's his job, right? As the casual person, right? There's an argument that he doesn't like. Why is he the guy, right? Like, why is Ariel the guy? He hasn't fought anyone, right? He's never been a fighter. And like, what gives somebody in that space the credibility to talk about fighting, right? Like, even someone who's been a karate instructor at a Tiger Schultz in, Milwaukee somewhere may have more credibility to talk about fighting, right, than Ariel, right? So why does he get that credit? Like, and I'm not asking you to shit on Ariel. I'm just saying, like, from your perspective, why is he the guy, as his
yeah, I can definitely answer that. So, well, first of all, Ariel's a guy who, and I'll answer that question in a second, but
sure,
I just want to say this.
Take your time.
It's like Ariel, I give him shit on the channel sometimes, but it's because he is a combative guy that goes after people in his videos. Okay. Like all the people I give shit to are people who give other people shit. And so like, but there's nothing anybody would ever watch of mine talking about Ariel where it'd be like a blood feud. You know what I mean? But it's like, but he likes to stir up shit and talk about people. And so it's fun to go pick it apart a little bit. But in terms of why he's in the place that he is extremely simple. Ariel recognized, he went to journalism school at Syracuse, if I'm not mistaken, and he recognized that there's this new growing sport and there are literally zero real independent MMA journalists. He basically created the job. He's been there serious. Like, that's why when I say like there haven't been any guys that didn't come up in the UFC, that excludes guys like him and Luke Thomas. And the reason why I don't consider them kind of in the same category is because they've been doing it for so fucking long that they're like staples of the entire thing. And if you really watch Ariel consistently, which I don't really watch anyone's content consistently at all, but I have never seen Ariel try to do a fight breakdown. I've never seen him try to tell anyone that he knows who's going to win a fight really confidently or whatever. Like, he actually doesn't get into he doesn't like really make predictions like that. That's not what he does.
Sure. I'd agree with that.
What he does, it's about access. Like, he's got the biggest show, so you can get him on. Why is Joe Rogan an authority? Joe Rogan's a fucking comedian. Why is he an authority on fill in the blank, extraordinarily complex topic? It's because he has access to the guys that are authorities, so he brings them on the show. So right. Like, Ariel's basically just that. I can't believe I'm comparing his show to Rogan's, but it just, in terms of like MMA, that's all.
No, I understood it. I hope nobody else took it like you did. I hope y'all don't. That wasn't what he meant to do.
It's access. And he doesn't really, in all honesty, he does an excellent job. He's, I disagree. Like, Jesus, I can't even fucking imagine what a political conversation between me and him would sound like. Cause I just, all right,
that hurts my head to think about. I'm like, I almost think people who think like that don't actually believe that. And you brought up Luke Thomas, and I've always wondered why it seems like people don't like him. Like I just get the vibe, right? I don't know him personally, and I'm not in the circle to know, but I just get this vibe that for some reason, like I don't watch Luke. I try. I do. I give him
He
a
does
shot.
great MMA coverage. I
I
fucked
don't know.
with
It's
him a
something
little bit.
about
Like,
him. I don't know.
I broke
Maybe
his
he's a great
balls a little
guy.
bit.
Just I don't know.
He seems like a good guy. Yeah, and everybody who knows him that I'm friends with, like Shab is a really good buddy of his, and Shab's my buddy. And Shab was like, dude, Luke's the best, man. So like I have no reason to think he's not. As a matter of fact, I'm sure that he is. I went after him. I don't know if you know this, but I went after Luke Thomas pretty fucking hard earlier this year. But it was because like, God, it was like, like some weeks where you've been seeing the same stupid shit over and over and over and over and over. The same stupid political shit over and over and over.
Yeah,
And like, and I've actually even talked about this on the channel. Sometimes I'll do a video and, like a handful of people will completely miss the point that I was making. And so they all keep commenting the same thing. That's like,
right.
that's absolutely contradictory to what I was actually saying. And I'll read one and it'll piss me off a little bit. Then I'll read two, it'll piss me off a little more, three, a little more, 4, 5, 6. And then like the seventh person that I read, I respond to them as if they were all 7 of them combined.
Yeah, they catch
and
the holy shit. Yeah.
And then I'll go back and read it later and just read just their comment. And then my response, I'm like, that was a fucking overreaction for just that one. It was infuriating because it feels like you got a whole room of people yelling at you. And then so
Right.
like one person just kind of eats shit for it. And like with Luke Thomas, I knew that throughout the pandemic, he was a mask and shots guy, which
Right.
automatically puts me on put me on real shaky ground with them right out of the gate. It's like, cause to me, I couldn't understand how any person could possibly see it that way, in the beginning. And so like, he was already in that category. And then when the movie Sound of Freedom came out and they were doing like they were doing the line about how it's a QAnon inspired movie. And I just heard that like over and over and over. And then I heard him say it on a
Right.
live stream and I just fucking snapped. And I did a video. I lit him up about that. And then I lit him up about the fucking, the shots and masks. And I mean, I went hard, dude, hard. And, it's like, I saw how he responded to it, which was initially, people were hammering, oh, do you see what Jesse on Fire said? You see what Jesse on Fire said? And I think a couple other people went at him at the same time. And he, so he said some things in the live stream where he was talking shit, like nothing about what I had said, but just kind of like the kind of thing that you would say if everyone's like, that guy's fucking with you, kind of like
Right.
Shit that I might have responded to if I didn't understand the actual situation. And so I saw that and I was like, I'm not, I'm going to just sit on that. I'm not going to respond to that. And then the next day he did a video where he called it a mea culpa. And then he said, he's like, look, I was wrong about like the shots. I trusted the institution, whatever. So I'm almost positive what happened was he responded because everyone was talking shit. Then he went and actually watched my video, I think.
And then it was already gone though. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I mean, but every time I've talked about him since then, I've basically been like, the reason I never talk shit back is because my goal with my video wasn't to like blast the shit. It was he's too fucking smart to be on that team. That's all. And that's the honest truth. It's like, dude, what the, you're friends with all of our guys. Like you're on our team. How the fuck are you on that? How do you, you know what I mean?
Yeah. That whole
fucking team.
Yeah, that whole when that movie came out, that and the whole, the 19 thing, that really showed people's true colors. It set us up for some really divisive times, but I think it almost set us up to like see who actually thinks for themselves and who's willing to either toe the BS line or are really that fucking stupid. Like, so now we're like, you got a group of us who are looking like, all right, so it got to the point with all of that, and I think that's where I get my idea that maybe there's some resentment with Luke Thomas. Every time I've heard his name, it's been somebody's had a problem with him. That's a media thing, not personal, like they want to beat him up. But Like we took our kid out of school, we homeschool, we did everything we needed to do to stand on the principle that
Yeah, we
no,
moved to Texas.
yeah, but like,
We
oh,
left
you mean
California and moved to Texas.
the experimental thing? No, we're not doing that. Like, no, we're not. So once they took the religious exemption in New York, that's what did it for us. You know what I'm saying? Like
And
that
that's
was the
what did
beginning.
it for us. They took away medical exemptions in California. We had medical exemptions for our kids, and they axed them, and we were like, later.
Yeah. No, we've it's going on what 4 years now that we've been doing that. So I commend you on that. That's that's what you got to do. So on the back to the MMA thing, because now that we're talking about people, I also got to ask about Schwab, because you said that's your guy, right? So and I'll give you the equation of why I'm kind of asking this. So I grew up in the music industry. I used to kind of look up to some of the rappers and things of that nature. And there's a longer story to this, but eventually these guys became my buddies. So yesterday we did a live, right? And one of famous rap guys came, jumped in the platform. The honor to have him in the platform. So it's been cool to kind of meet successful people and know successful people in my genre of things as a kid looking up to these rappers. So for the outsider, what is it like being friends with some of these people like Schwab and some of the people you know? Like, what's those relationships like? And meaning, like, do you give him shit when he's wrong or when he says some wild shit? Because he does say some pretty wild shit. Like, what's that dynamic like?
I mean, in some cases, when he said some wild shit, I fed it to him. Like,
Great, good to know.
The thing
Good to know.
I did not necessarily fed it to him, but like the Hamzat missed weight on purpose thing was so funny because the night before that, I talked his ear off for fucking 30 minutes about how it was definitely intentional, and then he said something about it on his show, and then Dana fucking lit him up for it, which has subsequently been all but proven that we were right. You know, when Hamzat was all, someone else's plan that I missed weight.
But, yeah, he eventually, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, no, it's awesome. Like, I mean, the best example though, I mean, Shab's my boy, dude. But like the biggest example would be when I started the channel and I visualized like what success looked like. For this channel, it was never, I mean, I wanted to make money, but it really wasn't about money. Like how and still kind of isn't. It's like I visualized a world where I mattered enough that if I posted a video that everyone would see it. And like, I kind of built it around Chael. Like, it was like, all right, so like, cause Chael, like back then he had the biggest channel. It's like, I want to be at a place where like, if I post, Chael will most likely see it. And now I talk to Chael every fucking day. That's my guy, dude.
Okay,
like,
hold up. Yeah, see, that's a can of worms. So here's what
guy right there, dude.
So Jesse, here's my equal to that. I did a show. This was one of the last times I've actually got on stage and performed. This was 6 years ago. KRS-One. Big. I don't know if you know who KRS-One is.
Of course,
but
yeah.
I look over. I'm performing at SOBs in Manhattan, and when I look over and see KRS-One going ape shit to my song, check the box. I looked at my girl. I looked at my girl. No shit. I looked at her. Now, she's like, "What happened?" I was like, "I'm done. I did it." She was like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" I was like, "Yo, I was 13. I had him on the wall. I said if he would only." So I identify with that. I fucking identify.
The best thing with Chael is like, so I do, like, he has the same sense of humor as me. So like, he thinks that I'm funny, which is my favorite thing ever. So like, if I do like a fake interview, it's like, I do these interviews where like I'll take like, John Jones or what's his name, Logan Paul, and I'll take their interview answers and then I'll write a script, like making it that they're answering different questions than they actually were, and then I'll cut them all together. And I sent, he's the first person I send him to because he thinks they're the funniest fucking thing ever. And like, he's like the most clever, funny ass guy on earth. And so there's something about like, just exactly like if KRS-One likes your music, that's basically exactly the same as like Chael thinking I'm funny. You know what I mean? It's like, it's that much more flattering because it's them. You know what I mean?
Right. So let me ask a Chael question. And this is more so for the audience, you understand this is personal for me. Like I wanted to talk to Jesse. So the Chael thing is this. One day, this is about maybe a year and a half ago. And I'm an avid Chael watcher. Like I make it my business when I'm doing things to make sure to go look and see what Chael got going on. But anyway, one day Chael says some very profound shit. And I'm somebody who's big on self-improvement, like you said, mental health and trying to be a better version of myself. And where I see and hear successful things and patterns, and Chael says some really profound shit. So one day we're riding in the car and I'm like, Heather, now I've said the shit that Chael has said to her in a mixed of a conversation. And I'm like, you know what? She's not listening to me. Maybe if I let Chael tell her, like if I don't say what Chael said and I just walk in with the phone and go, this is Chael, because she doesn't watch MMA. She has no idea who any of you fucking people are. She's like, all right. So I do that. I go, Heather, this is the guy that says the thing that I said to you. Can you listen
What's
to
the
this?
thing?
Oh, it was something about disciplining your kid, right? And how it was the whole idea about being tough, that whole video,
We can
right?
definitely discuss that. Yeah.
So I'm showing her this and I'm like, listen, this is why I speak a certain way. This is why I have a certain demand with him. And I want you to see that we, meaning people who are into, because I want him to hit a punching bag, because I want him to, I talk to him about self-defense and being, blah, blah, blah. Right. So I just show her that and she goes, oh, what does he do? I'm like, what? What do you mean? What does he do? I just gave you the whole thing. He's Chael. You don't hear him in the Bluetooth speaker. So how does Chael do that often with you? Does he say profound shit all the time to you, or is it just me
So
catching that in the video?
no, yeah, he's like, so a lot of the time when we converse through like voice memos because like we're both like busy. So like he'll record like a voice memo, send it to me, and then I'll record one back. So Gabrielle gets to hear, a lot of his stuff, and she fucking loves Chael. And she always says that. She's like, you can like he's got a really unique way of communicating, and that's really subtle that makes a person, what's the right way to put this? Like he subtly makes it very clear that he's like listening to the things that you say, and like it's hard to explain, but yeah, I mean he's
He's
a
one of the few
very
people you
sharp
cannot
dude.
misunderstand. You cannot misunderstand Chael.
Yeah,
Like it's very hard to misunderstand when Chael talks. So
yeah,
is he really in good shape though? Do you think he can still fight?
dude.
You think it,
These guys, yeah. These guys. I
you
mean,
think so?
these fucking guys. I just don't think that like regular folks understand the gap between professional fighter and everyone else. It's like the guys that, because people think like, oh, dude, Tony Ferguson lost 7 in a row. You're all right. How do you think you'd do? Like you could have 7 of you and he beat the fucking brakes off of all 7. Actually, you could have fucking 20 of you. And if you're going one at a time into the ring, tap, unconscious, tap, unconscious, tap, unconscious, tap,
Yeah,
unconscious.
Jesse,
Like,
I had to tell my nephew when he lost. I said, "Listen to me. I know you're 20 years old. I understand. That guy after that fight, give him a half an hour, will fuck you up. A half an hour after that fight."
mhm.
And 3 of your buddies will these are not regular guys, like you said.
No. And yeah, I mean, like the
Yeah,
time off, it's
yeah.
like, could a 45-year-old guy like step off the couch and go compete in the UFC, against the most elite guys? No, but like, I mean, also just, it's all depends, but like, yeah, I mean, could Chael or Bisping or any of these guys would be the last guy on fucking earth you would ever want to try out. You know what I mean? Like they're killers, dude. They're
Yeah,
super
I'd have
nice.
to
You'd have to
I try
really,
to tell people that.
yeah. They're not going to do any. I mean, like Bisping let a fucking guy punch him in the face in New Orleans and he let it slide.
You took the thought out of my head. I was like, who let somebody punch them, right? Like clearly you're like, oh, that's what you have?
Yeah.
Those are the guys you need to be worried about. It's like, okay, go ahead, go for it.
Yeah.
So this is what I suggest to everybody. Like I tell them this, I'm like, oh, you think you're ready, you talk tough, you want to be loud. Okay, cool. Just go one time to like a Muay Thai. Go one time to like just go. Don't
Mhm.
talk about it. Don't get loud. Go to a boxing gym for a day and just go in there, Billy Badass, right? And then boom. And you might have some guys that are naturally athletic and gifted and may have, maybe wrestled in high school or something that may be able to do something. But there is a difference between somebody who is 5, 6 days a week kicking something and being hit and building bone density and elbowing things and squeezing things and I think there should be a little more respect for that from your off the couch tough
Yeah,
guys.
I mean,
It's
I
a
mean, like,
bad decision.
even if they just go and do jujitsu as an example, I mean, there's a level of strength and athleticism that's very hard to deal with regardless of how good you are, but it's they're going to lose eventually against a guy that's even like that has a guy who's trained and trains consistently and is significantly less strong and fast. It's like, yeah, it'll be tough for a while, but eventually
Okay.
they're gonna lose. It's like I mean, those guys though, when you give them technique, I mean, are fucking monsters. I would
Okay.
actually
So
I was gonna
last
factor myself into that exact category where I was just like it's being strong and fast is actually a detriment to being or like advancing in jujitsu as much as you can because there's no other way to gauge how you're doing. I mean, much better than am I winning rounds? And it's like, so you go in there and if you're really strong and really fast and you have like a little bit of technique, you could smash, a lot of blue belts and white belts.
mhm.
And so you do that being strong and fast while not recognizing that there's a reason why you're losing to all of the fucking purple belts. And it's because their technique is better and is just going to overcome your speed. It's like you have to like accept that at a certain point and then stop using speed and strength and then only winning with technique. And then you start to really get much better. You know what I mean?
Okay, quick Tony question. Ferguson question. Uh does somebody need to have the Rogan Schwab conversation with Tony? Now I'm not into telling the guy to retire. I personally, because I know, like, I think the Clay Guida fight that you mentioned, I think that is
Yeah.
a wonderful fight. I think that was a great idea. And then, listen, if he goes in there and gets smashed by Clay Guida, but do you think we're at the point, because I've had this conversation with casuals that are like, yeah, that guy, he's what like, oh, it's not real, he should sue the UFC for letting him fight, that kind of bullshit. I've actually heard, and seen in Twitter where they're like, oh, they let Tony Ferguson fight, he should be able to sue them if something goes, if he gets CTE and he gets all of these things, because they let him fight. So
Yeah.
I get the dumbass argument, but like, what's your thoughts on it? Should that Rogan Schwab conversation be had with Tony at
Well,
this
first
point?
of all, I would just start by like, I don't generally engage in conversations that have absolutely no scenario where they move forward. As an example, any UFC fighter suing the UFC because their contracts are like a prenup with 100 different, like there's no fucking way that they could sue the UFC for that unless they prove that the UFC like had their doctors intentionally bury evidence of some kind of thing, which that would never happen. So, but
Right.
anyway, yeah, I mean, in terms of like, should someone have the conversation with them? It wouldn't matter if they did. Like it's I think I kind of like stumbled on this when I was doing a video about him, I don't know, 2 weeks ago, where I was saying like the reason why or one of the reasons why he was so scary and is still super scary is that when he was in his prime, like you just knew if you snapped his forearm in half and you gouged out his eye, and then he had 5 broken fingers on his other hand. Like it didn't matter. Like he was just going to keep walking forward, walking forward, walking forward. He's the boogeyman, dude. You can't get rid of him. He'll never quit. He doesn't feel the pain. He never runs out of gas. He is a fucking killing machine. And that's just objectively what he was. I mean, in the Justin Gaethje fight, dude, like
That was
no one
scary.
is
That was
still in that
scary.
fight. No one is still in that fight. And Herb had to step in while he was still on his feet, kind of like, having a scary kind of like my brain short circuiting reaction. It's like, I don't understand how anyone is surprised that the end of his career is like this, that he won't quit. Because that was his, I mean, we already know that's who he is. He doesn't quit. Like, the guy does not quit. So,
Right.
you know, and he's so disconnected from humanity. I mean, it sounds kind of weird to say it like that, but he's not like a person that's super dialed in socially. And I don't mean that necessarily. He's just like a person who's kind of in his own deal. And so people coming to him and being like, hey man, you should hang it up. Like that, a person coming to me and saying something like that, or going to most people, like would have a certain amount of weight in how I would accept that or not accept it. Like, you know, someone saying it to me would impact me X amount. I think people could say it to Tony and it's like, it'll just bounce off, you know, like I don't think that there's a person who can have that conversation with him where it's going to penetrate the, you know, whatever his brain is telling him. I mean, like in this sport, most of the time, the end of the line is guys get to a certain age, or, you know, they take a little bit too much damage or whatever, and they just are you know, below, there's a threshold they can't get over that the other fighters are still over. And it's like, and it's terrible because there's nothing you can do about it. There's no silver bullet. There's no training regimen. There's no switching coach. There's no mental thing, you know, like there's no like optimism that you can enter into. It's just like, it just is what it is. Like I said in my video, and then I said to Anthony Smith afterwards, like when I was talking to him about it, and I'm like, I put it in my video, and then I just told him I put it in my video, where it's like, you know, you could do all the fucking, you know, David Goggins mind work with me that you want about Jesse on fire. You are going to win this fight against Anthony Smith, and you could get me to believe it 100%.
Yeah. Oh,
and as soon as we get in the cage, he's going to put his shin through my fucking teeth. End of story. You know what I mean?
Immediately, with your hands up. He's going to do it with your hands up. He's going to do it with a helmet on. You got to,
And you're going to go, I didn't realize that like impact like that existed, you know?
Yeah. You know what did it for me? And I can say this, it was for me and my brother. It's not the little bit of training that we do, but it's a healthy respect from having gotten beaten the fuck up. It's a healthy respect from having won some fights, but lost enough of them to know, and not to rehash an old story, but this let me know, like, you know, loud doesn't always work. I was running my mouth and wah, 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 but you know, that's have wah, whoosh. It just took that. And I was just like, oh. And then when I looked at who did it, it dawned on me that I'm 5'5". He's definitely 6'3" and definitely 220, and I'm gonna get picked up, and this is not gonna go good for me. And I realized that. Like, hey, you might want to respect other men. Now, I do the size up thing in every room I go into, because that's just, I grew up institutionalized. It's a habit. It's not, I don't think I can beat everyone up, but I want to know who's limping in here. I want to see the wounded gazelles, who's drinking too much in the corner. I got my kids with me. I got my girl with me. I do that. I'm okay with that. I'm fine with that. Right? Because I don't think it's
weird when people don't do that.
And nowadays, but my point being is, like, do you think that MMA fighters, combat sports athletes, and these people, do you think that they should unionize? Do you think that the whole idea behind them forming, I don't think it's a good idea, right? The whole conversation about their fair wages because of the, you know, what they're getting into. Like, you know, how do you explain that to someone in simple terms? Because I try to tell them, like, hey, they know what they're signing up for. One, nobody puts a gun to your head. And I hate the narrative that, and I don't know if you ever heard this in MMA, but in basketball, football and track, it's like black athletes are the slaves on the auction block to the slave master thing, right?
But these are Netflix thing. That was the dumbest fucking thing I've ever seen.
Okay, so I'm lucky. We kind of glad we didn't have that in MMA. But what's your thoughts on that whole argument behind the pay and the, you know, I know it's nuanced, but kind of give me the shotgun Jesse's thoughts on it.
Yeah, I mean, So I am completely aligned with you in terms of like it's their responsibility to understand the risks of what they're signing up to do, which they do. I mean, that's the thing is like they do understand the risks. I think that if the fighters unionized, then fighter pay would increase exponentially overnight, because if they had a union and negotiated from collective bargaining, then the UFC would have to negotiate with them. They both, they need each other. Like the fighters have no job if the UFC doesn't hire them, but the UFC has no company if they have no fighters. So like the NFL, NBA, every single pro sport has an athletes union, which is why they make so much money. Now, do I think it would be good for the fighters? Absolutely. Do I think there's any chance in hell whatsoever that they'll do it? No, I don't. And it's like, and not because they're stupid. It's just, it's the nature of the sport. Like these guys are like combatants, you know what I mean? Like a lot of them know each other. A lot of them are buddies, but they're like these different camps that like don't get along. You know what I mean? It's like, and a lot of times they like, they know each other individually and whatever. Like, and there's a lot of guys who are really well networked, but for a fighter union to actually happen, someone is going to have to like go out in front and start organizing it, right? Like they would have to actually be the face of the fighters union. They're collecting people. And if they caught any traction at all, the UFC is going to bring them into an office. And depending on how valuable they are, they're either going to pay the fucking shit out of them to stop, or they're going to cut them the fuck out of the organization. So, which is exactly what I would do if I was them, like the UFC. Now, the second question, I guess, in terms of fighter pay is how much should a fighter get paid? And there's no like, that's why having this conversation with a lot of people just hurts my brain, because they're just never asking the right questions or looking for the right answers. It's like, okay, so how much should a fighter get paid? They're all, well, I think 25,000 per fight is too low. Based on what? Like what? How are you qualifying that? Because to me, it comes down to, if the UFC is going to do what they've done, which is absolutely brilliantly create and navigate, the like market dominance in mixed martial arts, then of course they want to have as much control and leverage over the fighters as they possibly can. So the question becomes, how much money should the UFC be profiting while fighters are making X? So it's like,
which is a strange question. That's a strange fucking question. I'm just,
what I mean? Like,
as a business owner, that's an odd question. That's an odd question.
It's like, yeah. Well, so like if the UFC is profiting after all of their costs, I don't know, $5 million off an event, and then everyone's like, oh, we need to be paying fucking fighters way more on this card. You're like, really? I mean, dude, they did a lot of fucking work. They only made $5 million. If they are profiting $75 million and the fighters are making 25, it's a different conversation. It's like and that's the issue, is that the UFC has such market dominance. The contracts are so tight that their profits could increase exponentially, and fighter pay doesn't necessarily have to catch up, because the fighters don't have any other options, really. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, I mean, it's basically a non-answer, because I don't really do like, I just empty my brain. It's like, so there's no like,
it's so but that's what I tell people, Jesse, because it's easy to say that until you have to deal with the practicality of it. Until you go, okay, let me be in the office writing the checks, and here's my overhead, and here's my profit margin. And then when it becomes practical, it becomes a different conversation. But in the sense of the idea of, do we want to see fighters make more money? Sure. I guess if that makes us somewhat a little liberal on some things, okay. I mean, we want to see fighters do better. I would love to see everybody making as much money as possible, right? But it's a business. Yeah. Like it's a business, and how much is it worth the UFC to do that when everybody's making so much money? Who's really going to want to fight with, you do 3 fights and now you got X amount of millions of dollars. I don't think your next 7 fights are going to go quite the same. I think there's something that's said for that too.
That's an excellent point that I've talked about a bunch. Is they listen, like a company, a corporation is the most predictable organism in the world. And it's because you know what their incentive structure is. A corporation is there to maximize revenue and limit costs, like maximize profit, obviously. So, one other thing I was going to say too about this was like, well, actually, let me finish this. So like the organization is going to try to maximize profit, and generally speaking, that has to come at the expense of paying guys more. Like, this is what I don't know. Why would they pay more? You know what I mean? Like, why?
Where do they do that at?
Like, why would they do that? Whenever guys get these huge contracts, it's because they've negotiated hard to get them. Like the guys get paid big. But to your point, the guys who have negotiated these huge contracts, what happens afterwards? Like in many cases is they stop fucking fighting. So like the UFC needs, like, if their best interest in their incentive structure to maximize profits is they need their stars to fight. So if they let their stars get too rich, all of a sudden they don't need the UFC and they're not coming to them to fight. They're kind of like, all right, whatever, I'll get around. So as much as like in a perfect world, if you're the organization, you want to pay these guys a fuckload of money and like, oh man, you're such a big draw and make them all rich. But it's like, that's actually directly contrary against their true corporate incentive structure, is to get these guys paid, not just from a profit margin perspective, but also for building the behavior of the fighter going forward. So it's like, I mean, I mean, who knows how this lawsuit's going to go? To me, the basis of the lawsuit is, you know what? I actually don't want to talk about it because I haven't actually fully seen the plaintiff's case.
We can opt out of that one. Yeah, we can definitely opt out of that one.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's
all right. So I got a couple of more questions for you before I let you go here. And again, I appreciate you, ladies and gentlemen, you watching the Urban Conservative. We're talking with Jesse on Fire.
I'm here by myself, so we can talk.
Okay, perfect. All right, all good,
man.
We're definitely gonna do that. We're gonna take a quick break, real quick. We're gonna come right back. We're gonna be talking with Jesse. We're here. Make sure to hit that like, follow, subscribe. Yeah, y'all are with us on a Friday, man. I know this is. I know y'all are like, what the hell is going on? Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Quick commercial.
Just because you're black doesn't mean you have to vote Democrat. This year, in order to see benefits for our communities, we need to vote outside the box. Find out more by visiting us at tuconservative.com.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you tuned into the Urban Conservative Podcast. We kicking it with Jesse on Fire. Quick question. This is kind of off the kind of a weird one, but this is what people had us ask. So, in a hypothetical MMA themed cooking show, who would be the heavyweight champion of the grill? That's your question, Will? Okay. So let me refine that.
Tai Tuivasa or Derek Lewis?
Tai Tuivasa or Derek Lewis? Who's a better cook, Schwab, Chael, or Anthony Smith? Who do you think would be a better cook?
I bet all of them are pretty good. If I had to bet, I would probably bet Anthony.
He seems like he would be. He seems like he shoots deer. He seems like that. I bet he has a nice.
He builds off-road vehicles and races them in the fucking desert. And yeah, he's definitely.
All right, so let me try this. Does Anthony Smith have a knife collection?
He's definitely got a gun collection. I would say almost 100% certain he has.
Well, knife guys are a certain type of guy. That's why I asked that, because they're knife guys. I
have a shitload of throwing knives. As a matter of fact, I'm going to bring those. We're going to this ranch for New Year's Eve, like my buddy's ranch. So we're bringing all the guns. I got to remember to bring the knife, the throwing knives. That'll be super fun.
That is some Texas. That's some Texas shit to say. That's the most Texas. When I edit this, America is gonna pop up. America is gonna pop up right there.
Yeah.
Gonna have to fucking do that.
Yeah, my wife got me a 1911 for Christmas, and she she wasn't, you know, she didn't know which one to buy. So she asked my friend Jeff Gum, who's a Navy SEAL, which one to buy. And it was like, that's what we said after. It's like a Texas wife buying a fucking a Springfield 1911 for her husband for Christmas after being advised by a Navy SEAL. That's the most America fucking Christmas present ever, dude.
There you go. There you go. Okay. Question: which fighter would survive the longest in a zombie apocalypse? Any weight class, just UFC fighter. Who would last the longest, you think, in a zombie
Yeah, I
apocalypse?
think Anthony would do real well. I think Frank Mir would fucking kill it in a zombie apocalypse. This motherfucker's been preparing for that forever. He's a
Yo,
big survivor. Frank Mir, yeah.
Frank
That's my dude.
Mears, he scares me in a manly way. Like he's a kind of guy you don't really want to fuck over kind of guy. Like he scares me that way. Like if he's on your ass, you got a problem. Like he comes
That's
across like
fact.
that kind of guy. He's
He's a
I've
really,
never met
really
him.
nice guy. Like he's super fucking cool in person. But yeah, I mean, like that's because he's my buddy. Like he definitely would not be a guy I would want to like.
Yeah.
You know, he's not the kind of guy. Like you've spilled a drink on him, he would be like Jesus, and he would let you know he's super annoyed, but he wouldn't break your head. But like if
Right.
you know, if you, like he's not like there are guys in the organization where I think like that's the kind of guy that might do like flash on someone because they accidentally spilled a drink on him. You know, like guys that are
There are those guys.
I mean, I'm just gauging it, just looking at him. I mean, you know, like
I would have thought you said Strickland. I would have said Sean Strickland would have made it the longest in a zombie apocalypse.
I think he would do good, but Strickland might like the reason I would not put him at the top is because, you know, it'd be like, all right, we got to go get supplies. I think Anthony or Frank Mir would really clock the risks where Strickland might just be like, all right, I'm fucking going. And he might end up kind of like in a situation where there are 50 zombies, and it could have been foreseen had you really kind of thought, you know, given a long bit of thought about it, you know. I'm sure Strickland would be fucking incredible at shooting and killing zombies though.
Yeah. All right. I don't know what kind of questions y'all are sending me right now, but I'm gonna ask Jesse anyway. Like you guys are fucking killing me right now. Yeah, I can't believe I'm about to ask this. Okay. In a parallel universe where fighters compete in interpretive dance instead of the octagon, who would be the reigning champion and what dance style would they dominate with? Yeah, you guys are nuts.
Man, if you just shed all, we're talking like just shed all inhibitions and these guys just dance. I think you got to go Israel Adesanya in pick some kind of whatever dance. Doesn't matter. I think Izzy probably wins.
Sure.
Anderson Silva would kill it. I think Cody Garbrandt, if you got him to just forget that he has any self-consciousness at all, he would kill the guys. He's like his footwork is like dancing on a cloud. I think he would do it. And I gotta go Izzy though. I gotta go Izzy.
I think you're right. Which UFC fighter, in your opinion, would have the best career as a children's book author? And what would be the title of their first book?
I think you got, I mean, I'm just literally saying the first person that comes to mind when you ask these. I'm going to say Beneil Dariush, and the title of the book would be Fighting for God or something like that. Like,
I'll take it.
To fight for God.
Yeah, you're probably right. So you might be prophetic. If Beneil ever writes a children's book, we could say he got it from you. He got the idea from you. Yeah, that's what we're gonna do. So let's talk Trump real quick because especially on this platform, Trump's a big deal on this platform. The relationship with the UFC, him being a fight fan. Does Jesse think he's actually a fight fan, or do you think he comes out just because he's gonna get the camera look? Like for those who may not know that, because that's a thing. People are like, oh, he's only there. He doesn't really like the fights. He's just there because he can get an audience, and the cameras are going to pan to him 6 times at a pay-per-view, right? So do you think that's a thing?
I think definitely he is really a fan. And I'll tell you a story about that. So I went to UFC Miami this year, the one where Israel Adesanya beat Pereira, the knockout of the year. And we were in the front with all the NFL guys. And like, you know, we were like kind of in that crew. They all found out that Trump was going to be there. Right. And so we kind of overheard a conversation of guys saying that they were like, fuck, man. They're like, we got to be careful about getting photographed with him. Right. Like they were saying like they actually had to be like cautious because if they get photographed with him, it can blow him up negatively on social media. Right. And so they weren't like talking shit or anything like that. It was just like, you know, these guys make fucking $20 million a year and they're extraordinarily public. And, you know, like any kind of negativity in the media can actually matter for
Hurt them.
So that's kind of, you know, that's what these players were talking about. And so, and we knew he was there because when we were going in the VIP entrance, so we were there with Mike McDaniel, the Dolphins coach. So it's our car, me, Gabrielle McDaniel, and his wife Katie. And so we pulled up and they're like, hey guys, you guys are gonna have to wait for a second. And I remember being like, who the fuck's making the Dolphins coach wait to get in the gate? And they're like, it's gonna be a minute, there's a Secret Service. And I was like, oh shit. I was like, DeSantis. And he's like, and I was like, Trump? Like we had this is like kind of before known that Trump was coming to all these events. So that, you know, it's huge motorcade came. And so we knew he was there. But so after hearing that conversation among like some of the NFL guys, then when Trump came out, he came out with Kid Rock and Mike Tyson and Dana, and they played, you know, the Kid Rock song. Dude, that place literally, that's the loudest I've ever heard anyone cheer for anything. And so, I mean, we went nuts, obviously. And then, but I was just watching the NFL guys. Like, you know, we're on the same row. There's like 2 rows of them. I just heard a bunch of them saying this shit. So I'm looking at them just to try to like, you know.
Yeah, see their reaction.
Like, just to be like, oh, so, you know, it's a little different than, you know, how you interpret it. Because I was even blown away by how universal the cheers were, you know. And you could just almost feel that, like, they're like, what the fuck, man? We live in some kind of alternate reality, because like the media makes it seem like Trump is the most disliked person on earth, that
on the
only
fucking
the
planet,
trash bags support him and yada yada. You know, like that's the environment that they create. And then you're physically in person. There's no way to fucking spin that, dude. It's like there's no spin on the entire crowd is losing their fucking mind for this person who just walked in. There's no fake poll you can put on. There's no mail-in voting, none of that shit. It's just like, this is just what it is, dude. If you gave everybody a ballot right now, he would have just won 99.8% of the vote. And it was just like, and what I said to my wife after, I was like, I am telling you right now, you could bring the most Trump derangement syndrome person on earth into that environment. And if they were in the building and felt that energy 2 to 3 times, it's going to change. It's going to change their perspective. Like, because humans are social animals, dude. Like, if you think that you're part of the, you know, the majority, and then you find out that you're in this fucking tiny minority and everyone else is happy and screaming and happy, and you're the one person that's angry and upset. If you're not going to sit there and question, why am I the only bitter fucking thing? Then there's something wrong. Like,
definitely.
It was
it
makes the
hair
on my fucking arm stand up thinking about it, because there's like everyone started cheering. They're like, USA, USA, the whole fucking place. It was so
okay. I gotta tell you, not that it happened at a UFC fight, but this is how I can identify with that. So we get we get an invite from a buddy of ours to go to the rally in North Carolina. Never been to a Trump rally before, right? My first rally, and I'm thinking like what you said, like, oh, the news says it, you know, it was only a few thousand people. It wasn't, right? So we get there early. This thing, he's supposed to come on at 4. We get there at 11:30, right? We got there at 11:30. We get on the VIP line, and it began to fill up. And when I say fill up, like, I was like, wait a minute, there's no way all of these people are gonna fit. So we're on the bleachers, and when I tell you he was an hour late and they locked the area down, they were like, okay, he's coming out. If you haven't used the bathroom, no one's coming in and out of here. Like, we were on TV behind him. Like, I could literally throw my phone at him and hit him in the back, right? Like, bow, like just boop, hit him with the phone. So when I'm telling you these people were losing their minds, the only other thing that I saw like that was coming from the music industry, being at events and seeing people go crazy over like artists. It's the closest thing. But when I mean they didn't care for their safety. This is why young white guys who love Trump are dangerous to me, because they don't care for their safety. They were shaking this thing, and I'm like, yeah, I don't care. And he's like, no, we don't care. We love Trump. I'm like, but we're gonna die. You're gonna cause a collapse. The whole structure is like, and I'm like, yo, I'm never coming to another rally again. If this is what you guys are doing, I'm cool. I've experienced it. Never going to another one. I'm cool. Yeah. I've done it. But that's unreal. Like the scream, the the energy that he commands. I thought it was hyperbole. I thought it was media based, but it's not. And sure enough, 2 weeks later in the paper, it was like they reported like 5,000 people. No fucking way. There was at least 10, 15,000 people out there. I mean, like this, when you're looking in the crowd, like, whoa, So
everyone should go to one of those. Like, I said to get
at least one.
Yeah. After the UFC thing, I was like, man, dude, if he does a rally near us, we gotta go, dude. Like, and the thing is, I've thought, I mean, I've put so much thought into the entire kind of phenomenon of Trump and what his, like, I don't know, what his position is and why they're fighting. You there?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry. You disappeared for a second, but like why why they push back on him so hard and do all this shit and like all of it. I've just kind of like tried to like triangulate all of it. And it's like, there are a few things that I could just take as, well, first of all, I try to actually start with like, what are the things that I don't know? Right. And it's like the number one thing that I don't know that is extraordinarily relevant is like, how does the world actually work? Like, I think I kind of understand, but if a real smart person has to know that what's really going on behind the scenes in terms of like how the United States interacts with other countries internationally and all of this stuff. Like, if you fucking think that you know anything about that as just a regular civilian, then that means you're a fucking moron. Like, you have to be able to accept that you don't really understand how all this shit works. And so, there are certain things that you can, of course, know, which, like, oh, if this company that, finances all of the lobbying in DC and finances all of the campaigns of all these people stands to make $100 billion on this thing, then it's not a super big stretch to be able to assume that there is tremendous corruption behind whatever is going to drive that. But in terms of like Trump himself, it's like, I don't know how much a United States president, like, what can they actually do? Like, are they capable of really fucking breaking shit? Like really breaking shit. And if so, is Trump breaking shit in a good way or a bad way? I think that he seems to me to be like the first politician in a long time who genuinely is like thinking about how the United States is going to benefit from this, that, or the other, and like the actual populace. Like, how is this affecting people? Like how, like that's how he comes off to me. And the other thing is just that the president is a symbol of the country that you're in. And like, man, if we could just get these fucking TDS people to go to a rally and actually feel the collective energy, it's like, don't you want to be a part of this? Wouldn't it be better for you guys to be on this team versus everybody turn into you guys? Like, what do you care this much about? Like, this in this room, you have Trump, who's just a symbol. Like, all of these politicians are fucking corrupt, rich, whatever. So like they're a symbol. So in here, everyone is screaming all in the same direction about something they're happy about, which is, yeah, USA, Trump. What are you guys doing over there? So like, if we go over there, what are we doing? It's like, oh, we're screaming about how half the country, are terrorists, and like, and how,
they need
our history,
asylum.
right? It's like they're constantly talking about things they're upset about. They like bring it down like, oh, the United States is trash because of blah blah blah. And over here, it's like the United States is amazing. It's like, which would be better if we have to assimilate to one group? Which is the better option? I'm like, see, it's a fucking no brainer, man.
Okay, so here's how I take it. I take it like this: we, meaning you and I, and people who kind of think in the same vein, we practice two different cultures, right? That side is a culture of aggrievement and what somebody owes them and what's wrong, and the government is just a aggrievement and stress. While we're a culture of achievement, we look at the shit we got right. How can we improve on that? Let's look at the things we're doing good and improve on that. And it's two different cultures, right? I don't think anybody owes me a damn thing. And me and my brother come from foster homes, institutions. We could have been the perfect liberal. The white man's the devil. We could have blamed everything, but no. What happened to me when it was out of my control as a child have to do with me making my mind up today to decide to be a productive fucking member of society or a piece of shit? I think it's a very simple decision-making process, right?
Yeah.
So when you can fuzzy that line, which is what I think a lot of what Trump stands for, is that, like, you got a New York guy that's outside of the political norm. You got from what I understand, it was unable to be intimidated by even the mafia. So it says a lot in New York when he was able to operate here without them even. So you got this guy, like you said, that's a symbol, and the ability for what he did for quote unquote my community, the black community, whatever you want to call it. I don't agree with it, but just for the sake of everybody, of the black community, whatever. I think those achievements are not given enough credit. And I think in this race in 24, I think if we can highlight those things, we'll have a better chance at righting the ship. What's your thoughts on the whole entire idea behind, like, Disney, the transgender thing in all of the movies, and more importantly, not that you haven't said it before, but we have a different audience, like I said, who may not know. I know what you're gonna say, right? But there's a fight that we saw with the guy breaking the guy broke the girl's skull, the transgender thing, and a lot of people put that. A lot of people, really, right? Is there any space where there could be men and women fighting? Is there anywhere?
It's like that conversation. The way I view it, honestly, is the fact that we even are discussing it means that the enemies have won. It's like, you know what I mean? Like, the fact that we even have to say this shit out loud is a victory for our enemies. Like, that's what they want. They want us fighting over nonsense. Like, you got us arguing with each other about whether it's okay for a 6'5" college swimming dude to just grow his hair long and start calling himself a girl's name and then go break every record in college sports and, like,
lap my daughter 3 times over. Yeah, like she's.
We have to fucking discuss this versus, like, focus on real shit. But that's, and the point that you made about Trump and the black community, to me, is interesting in that, like, I don't understand how people don't, like, look at, okay, so it's like, all right, so Biden said blah, blah, blah. Trump said blah, blah, blah. Okay, well, what do they do? Right? You hear a lot of talk about, like, sentencing guidelines and all of that stuff. Who's the only politician that ever actually did anything about it? Trump. Like, Trump's the one that went after all the sentencing guidelines stuff and did, like, actually made an impactful difference on a key issue, in that community. And it's like, he gets he doesn't get any credit for that. I just, I think a huge awakening point for most people will be if they watch what the media quotes Trump is saying, and then they just watch the full clip every time. It's like, so here's what they said he said. Now watch the full clip. Like, so does it like did
That doesn't
they
work, Jesse.
intentionally misrepresent what he said? Yes. Okay, so now go back to all of the things that they said that he probably misrepresented what he said after I just showed you the last 5 times consecutively that they said he said this, and then you watch a full clip and it's a complete lie. It's like, I mean, sometimes they just make shit up, like completely make shit up. Like the story about how this story, I remember this one a couple of years ago where like when he was, I think he actually was still president, when they said that he was at the military cemetery, and he called the soldiers, the American soldiers that had been killed in war, he called them losers. And I'm like, who would believe that? There's no fucking way he said that. Is, I'm going to say right now, I would let you chop my fucking arm off if he said that. There's no possible way that Trump called the heroes that got killed in military action, that he just called them losers.
Yeah, there's no way.
From an anonymous source, and they all ran that story. I'm like, this is a fucking lie, dude. Like, this is just an outright lie.
Yeah, it's infuriating, but it's also it's a warning, right? Because if they can do that to somebody, and I have to just touch on this one thing. I wish we didn't have to say the Black community. I fucking hate that, because we don't all think the same way, right? Like that. So like I see these videos, and it's like people will show, and we have it on our Instagram. There's like a video of a kid rapping, and it's like this, and that's Black culture. And no, that's not Black culture. That's ghetto culture. And it just happens to be a Black kid in that video, but there's a white kid in a trailer park, same circumstances, different building. Same,
100%.
you know, like I don't see the difference between Black ghetto and trailer trash. Like we're all in the same boat here. Like different vehicles, different music. You're in G flat, he's a guitar, you're a kick drum and a bass. Like, what's the difference? Poor, no money, alcohol, but parents. Like, it's all the same thing. So I get it's a little frustrating when people say that, because I'm like, you know, a community is a group of people that eat together. Look up the word community. We can say the word community, but if we mean it, right? Like, then why is there garbage every fucking where I look around? Like, why did nobody accost the guy who just threw all his garbage out the window? Like, you can't do that. You probably can't do that shit in your neighborhood. I know you can't do it where I live. Good luck with that. Next door neighbor over there is a correction officer. The guy over there owns the hardware store. Sheriff down the block, Bay Constable. Go ahead and do that around here if you want to. Go ahead.
Let me ask you a question. So, how much? And then I'll tell you a story of why I ask. So, like, how much of the, you know, I guess, like, how hard is it to be Black in America and openly support Trump if you are in kind of just most social groups in that community? And I'll tell you why I ask is, like, so this is actually a pretty funny story too. So, like, when you remember when what's the name of that company where it was like all these chat rooms, not hangouts, oh my god,
that's Snapchat, like, Meet Me, MySpace.
No, it blew up like in 2020, and it was like where people would call in, like everybody was calling it, not hangouts. Fuck me, dude.
Meet Me group something. I don't know.
Hang on.
I wiped it from the hard drive. I got nothing.
Dude. It's gonna drive me fucking crazy until I think of it. But
yeah, go ahead.
I don't know. I mean, it was like a really, really big fucking site, and so I remember this was like late 2020, so just dead heat George Floyd stuff, right? And so I saw a chat group, or like you know, a conversation group that was titled something that I thought was, you know, Black conservatives, you know, discussing whatever. So I went in there, and the question that I posed to the group, no, not Discord.
Oh, the phone one, group chat. The phone one. I can't. Now I know what you're talking about. Do I have this shit on my phone?
I know. I used to have it. The text,
it's like Clubhouse.
Thank you.
Jesus fucking Christ.
Drive me fucking crazy. Clubhouse. So I go into this room because, like, I like having conversations, you know, with I want to hear what people think. And so here's the question that I posed, and I'll tell you why this is funny. So I went in and I was like, look, the question that I have for the kind of just what's going on is, so you have George Floyd over here and you have police officers over here, right? And it's like, and you have, it almost seems like the all of the activists that are so passionately supportive on the George Floyd side that this is a murder and this is this, and this is this. And I'm not saying that I know, you know, at the time I'm like, I don't know what's what at all. Some people say it's fentanyl, some people say, you know, whatever. I'm like, but here's the thing that I don't understand is just from an emotional standpoint, this guy over here, take color out of it. I'm like, just fucking forget about color. This guy over here has been arrested, you know, 15 times. He's been imprisoned multiple times for, you know, putting a gun to a pregnant woman's, you know, stomach. He's a fentanyl addict. And then over here, you have this guy who's like, has a job. He's had this job for however long. And it's like, if you are a person who's held a 9 to 5 for this, it's like your life mimics the police officer's life 100 times more than it does George Floyd's. Like you nothing in common with George Floyd, nothing. Like literally
right.
Nothing. The only thing you have in common with him is that you're both black. So like you have every reason to identify with the person who lives the way that you do and not with the lifetime fentanyl addict career criminal. I don't understand how this is the one that you emotionally align with. And the reason why this is funny is because I misunderstood what the title of the clubhouse was. And this was the exact opposite of that. It was a BLM room that I said that to. And like, you just, dude, you could hear, I've never heard a silence in a room that I knew immediately what had happened, that I'd misjudged what kind of room it was. But after, you know, I did it in a respectful way. I wasn't like, oh, why are you complaining?
Yeah, I got you.
Like, you know, it's a question for people about why they align the way that they do, not saying anything about the actual incident. And once I said that, all of a sudden the conversation changed completely. And there were tons of people on my side. You know, they started arguing, you know, with each other, but they were like way, you know, I had a panic attack. And then all of a sudden, then I just got out of it. And there were many, many, many people who were on this side that were just like, it seemed like they wouldn't have said it otherwise. You know what I mean? Where it's like,
well, interesting
like,
thing.
how much of it is about social pressure versus anything else?
Okay, so two things to that. In the face of dissent, right? Conformity reduces by about 40%. When you present in a space like that, there's an experiment, a good series of videos, because you're a mental guy. There's a good series of videos called The Psychology of Belief. So it breaks down that when dissent is present, that conformity reduces 40-50%. That's you're an example of what happened. That you came in with the dissident opinion, and that group of people now were like, yeah, we got a leader amongst us we were thinking it, but so how much of it is social pressure? I would say 99.9999% of it is the social pressure. You got to remember, and unfortunately, it's always made to seem like a black thing, but it's not. It's an American culture thing, but we'll go with black culture. Hip hop, black culture, if you will, in America went from the Jeffersons. It went from Red Fox and all of them to NWA. Fuck the police. There was a transition. So you have a generation of kids who have been predisposed to sentiments through media. Very simple. It's not even, we can go into the weeds about it and say this song and this and this, and we won't do that. But what you have is a generation of kids who were preconditioned to have this very liberal sentiment. I was one of them. I believed for a long time that the police were out to get me. That there was an agenda against the and it wasn't until I really snapped out of it and had kids and grandkids and even doing the show where me and my brother would talk about it, like, you know, the cop wasn't an asshole. We were sitting in a car with no license plate, smoking weed, fogging out the car on the public road, asshole. Like you think the cop was out to get you? I'll never forget it. We were baking the car out, no insurance, wrong plates, and The car, I can't even see out of it. We knocked on the window. The lady cop was so nice. She was like, "Are you guys fucking for real?"
Yeah.
And we did our best
Hey,
black shit.
profiled us.
Yeah, we did our best. But my point is that you have a generation of people preconditioned to that, right? And unfortunately, most of the intellectuals in the black in colleges, they're very left leaning. There's very few Thomas Sowells. There's very few Walter Williams. There's very few Shelby Steele. Some black folks don't even know who those people are. So a lot of it is social condition and social pressure. But we have a conflict that our values don't line up with the shit when you say it out loud.
Yeah.
Right. So like you could say you can ask, and I do, this is part of what our urban conservative thing is, right? Understanding reality beyond the narratives, not just the urban in the city, but urban in the sense of like, okay, hip hop culture, people that come from that culture. We ask them this all the time. We say, yo, what is entertainment? And you've probably never heard this. And we explain them to entertainment very simply. Enter, meaning to go in. That means to go in. What does tain mean? What does attain? What does that mean? TAIN. What does that mean? We agree that enter means to go in. What does tain mean? Tain means to take hold of. It's a suffix, a Greek. And then you got ment, M-E-N-T. Well, what does that mean? That means mental, mentality. Okay. That's why we see it in words like mental. So now let's look at the word entertainment again. Does it mean to sing and dance and to rap, or does it mean to go in and take control of your mind? That it literally means that. It's not a fluffy, goofy, pseudo-science-y definition. That's called etymology. It's how words work. It's what the fuck it means. So entertainment has psychologically trained our folks, really, you know what I'm saying, Jesse, to have a predisposition to not liking cops, to think all Republicans are old, rich, racist white men, to think that you, because you appear to be a white guy, somehow are inherently racist or have an advantage just because of the color of your skin. That's been just, beat, raped, tortured, and psychologically programmed into generations of kids. And that's what we do this podcast for. And we talk to people about and get other sides because, I've had family members, because of being a Trump supporter, gay family members that I've never said a word about their lifestyle, go on Facebook and say, "Oh, you're a Trump supporter. Never fucking call me again. Lose my number, you piece of shit." And I'm like, wait a minute. You sausage smoker, I never disrespected you.
You're like, you don't want to ask me a question about why?
I took off on him. And then I just said the most vile things I could come up with because I was like, really? Like, you could have called me. You went on Facebook and it was over to grab him by the P line, right? Which was an example of misrepresented what the man said. He didn't say that.
I think that was a deep fake, dude. That's what I think. I think that
no, he said it. He said it. He said it. But it's not what he said. He didn't say, like, he said they will let you do it. He didn't say I do it. It's not what he said. He said they'll let you come up to him. And I've been there. I've been at the mansion party. They do. They do. It's unreal. It's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. I was like, especially once I had daughters, I was like, there's no way. This is not going to work for me. It's never going to work for me again.
If Diddy ran for fucking office on the left, they would just be like, oh gosh, you guys, get over it. That
here's my Diddy theory. They're protecting them because he did vote or die. Remember that whole remember back in the 90s? Vote or die. Remember that? That was all him. Yeah. They gave so much money to Obama and all of them. They raised so much money. So I think he owes a few favors. I think do you think that whole Puff Daddy situation ends up bad?
Nah.
I
don't think it ends up bad because like he got all of those artists to sign. He gave them all their masters, and when they signed for him, they signed away their ability to talk about it. And so the only people who were under contract with him back in the day that did not sign are the Danity Kane girls. That's it. Every other artist signed, and took their masters. So you got Aubrey O'Day, and that's pretty much it. And maybe he'll have to write some checks, but when they got the masters, not only can they not talk about it, they also indemnified him from any future civil litigation. So he gave them these valueless masters for these old ass songs that no one streams anymore anyway, and they signed their lives away for it. So
Good
No,
good
I don't.
friend
I
of the
mean,
show. I gotta shout out Dylon for making the band. Shouts out to him. That's my guy, friend of the
Dylan,
show.
Dylan, Dylan, Dylan,
Yeah,
Dylan,
yeah.
Dylan, because I spit that hot fire.
Yeah, he was watching earlier. He actually checked in. Where's his comment? It's somewhere in here. I'll play it back. Shouts out to you, Dylan. Appreciate you, brother. Listen, Jesse, man, I appreciate you coming on the platform. I have
My
to
pleasure.
have you do this before we go. We gotta have a lightning round. It's what we do
Do
on
it.
our show. One word response. I'm gonna say a name. First thing comes to mind. One word response when I
Okay.
say the following name. Okay. Barack Obama.
President.
Eh, all right. John Wayne.
Cowboy.
Little Yachty.
Braids.
Okay. Interesting. Uh, Kurt Cameron. Kirk Cameron.
Christian.
Okay. Dana White.
Badass.
Okay. And I didn't even get to ask you my Dana White question. Did you meet Dana? Do you know Dana?
I've been I'm like one step removed from Dana at this point, but yeah, no,
Almost
he
there.
came over
Almost
in
there.
Miami,
Okay.
he came over and talked to all the NFL guys. I was right there, but I don't like, the first time I meet a person, I don't want it to be me like fanning out on them. You know what I mean?
Do you think he knows who you are, though?
I don't know. A lot of them do now, but like, I'm not sure if he knows who I am, but I'll tell you what, I have done any video I've ever talked about him in. I have done with the assumption that he'll see it so that I can be safe knowing that if he ever watched any of my shit, he's not going to be like, oh, there's this fucking guy,
Okay. Fair enough. Okay. Nike or Adidas?
Nike,
Okay. Hot dog or hamburger?
hamburger.
Really? Hamburger guy?
I mean,
Okay.
I don't like either of them, but if I had to choose, I've almost never ordered a hot dog in my life. Hamburgers, I don't like eating shit with my hands and face. Like, I mean, I like pizza fine, but like hamburgers and hot dogs fucking get everywhere,
Are you a pizza guy? Do you do pizza?
Yeah. Pizza, I
Yeah,
do.
pizza guy. Pizza. Is there any good pizza in Texas where you are?
Yeah, there's actually a place that is so good that we order it every week.
Good.
It's like,
Good. Don't tell everybody. They got to pay for the plug. Don't worry about that. Don't tell everybody. We don't need them going to check you out. Stalking your local
oh no,
pizza joint. So,
we get Uber Eats, man. They would never be
there you
like, we
go.
don't go there.
There you go. There you go. Okay. You have to get into a fight. There's going to be a physical altercation. There's no two ways about this. There's no talking your way out. It's happening.
Yeah.
Who would you prefer to have with you? Would you rather have Donald Trump or would you rather have? Let me see. I was going to give you him, but would you rather have Donald Trump or would you rather have Steven Seagal? Got him.
I
Got
mean,
him.
gotten like Donald Trump just because it's a fucking better story either way.
Yeah. Okay. All right. All right. I'll take it. All right. Last question in the lightning round. You win the plug. You're stuck on a desert island. You got one meal for breakfast, one meal for lunch, one meal for dinner. What's Jesse having for eternity?
For
What are you having?
eternity.
Like this is all you're gonna have until you're dead. Breakfast is
man.
gonna be the same thing every day. Lunch is gonna be whatever it is, and dinner's gonna be whatever it is. What are you going for?
One of them is going to be an anchovy pizza from either that place or my place in California for, let's call it lunch. And then I don't know, breakfast. I'm not even really a breakfast guy. Dinner,
Last dinner ever you're ever gonna have. So make it a good one.
probably a medium rare filet, and broccoli.
No asparagus? You're not an asparagus with the
No,
with the
I like
medium?
asparagus too. Asparagus with
Yeah.
like a mayonnaise with like lemon juice in it. Yeah, asparagus with lemon juice in it.
There you go. Nice
Top.
asparagus. Okay, we got Jesse's meals. Well, you've won the lightning round, sir. The floor is yours for the next X amount of time you need. Tell the folks where they can support you at, how they can, watch all that good stuff.
Yeah, Jesse on Fire, YouTube, and then on all the other social medias, it's Real Jesse on Fire, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, etc.
There you
But
go.
yeah, Thanks for having me on, man. I appreciate it.
No, the pleasure's all mine. We got UFC 300 coming up. Obviously, we're going to be launching our show, Balls and Gloves, where we will be talking about ball sports, glove sports. We will have Jesse back on the platform. Sir, again, thank you for taking the time. As we tell our guests that come on here, time is the one thing you cannot get back. So for taking some time with us, we're eternally grateful for that. Thank you, sir. Have a happy new year. Again, go support Jesse on Fire's YouTube channel. We're going to get him back on here. Like I said, folks, stay tuned. We're going to be talking some UFC 300 stuff. I didn't get to ask him about Conor because you said some wild things about Conor. When I bring you back, we'll talk about that. There's just so much in the MMA world we could get into,
Yeah.
but I appreciate you, brother. Ladies and gentlemen, for my twin brother Duali, I'm Raheem Architect Soto. Make sure to be back here Monday night, 8 p.m. for the Urban Conservative Podcast. I think we got Congressman Lalota or Senator Palumbo on next Monday. Somebody's coming on next Monday. So I'll make sure to get that thumbnail up. But for my twin brother, Happy New Year. Ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate all of the support you guys are giving us this year. And support, podcasts like Jesse. Support all of the MMA guys that are doing good stuff. And we'll see you back here, post haste, ladies and gentlemen. Peace.
Thanks, man.
Just because you're black doesn't mean you have to vote Democrat. This year, in order to see benefits for our communities, we need to vote outside the box. Find out more by visiting us at tuconservative.com.